Sabir. In today's hot seat is Neil Twa. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He's the founder of and CEO of Voltage Digital Marketing. He has been launching, operating, and growing private label e-commerce businesses for the last 9 years. As of today, he and his clients have sold over $100 million in physical products, primarily through the Amazon FBA sales channel. Neil shares his blueprint for how to build an online business that can generate a passive six-figure income in just 12 months, while setting up the business for potentially millions in sales within 18 months. Neil, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
I think we're going to have a great time. We have tackled the question of Amazon many different ways. I have been a guest, and just before we went live, I mentioned that I was guesting on a lot of podcasts and a lot of shows, and they typically get me for talk about like Amazon businesses and how to grow them and hack them. On this show, we had Anderson Salgado in one of our episodes. He's an ex-Amazon guy that does phenomenal work with Amazon, businesses in order to bring them onto Amazon. So today's angle is a little different, right? We want to talk about Amazon, but we want to also talk about building a company with the mindset of actually selling the company, to different types of ventures and stuff like that and funds. So we will go through that, but in the initial stages, from your POV, I would like to understand when you think about Amazon FBA and you think about Amazon, what can I sell on Amazon? And also together with that, Neil, what can I not sell on Amazon?
That's almost more important a question. What can you not sell? So in simple terms, having done this for a long time, once upon a time, I had a student ask me very point blank after we'd had this wonderful session and he was understanding and nodding and we were going through the, what to sell. And he just blurts out, he's like, what the hell do I sell? Right. It was just like, he wanted to just tell me, what am I going to sell? So that has kind of stuck with us, the what the hell do I sell question on Amazon. And then usually I like to cover that when I'm talking to new audiences because it is the biggest factor in people's minds, at least when they think about Amazon and physical products or selling a product online. What am I going to sell? How am I going to make money? I understand the concept, but I don't understand maybe the tactical aspect, like the actual product that I would actually sell or even how I have it manufactured. So it kind of is a question that expands into other areas that are probably more important to address those areas because as you address those, that question actually answers itself. And those components, I think, are something that we can continue to dive into today's call. What are those criteria? What's the process and the methodology behind determining that actual product by not just guessing or taking any sort of emotional approach to the product itself, but looking at it from a business perspective in which I want to drive a business that provides solutions for customers. I want to provide a solution in the form of a product that meets the demand of a particular customer at a particular time. And when that opportunity and path and solution cross each other, they choose my product and they choose my brand to solve their solutions. And they do that because they see the value in what we're providing, not just the monetary value, but they see the value of the solution, which gives us a new perspective on the monetary value of that solution. It doesn't mean that my solution has to be sub $25, like a lot of people think when they start getting the concept of Amazon selling in mind, right? And you very succinctly said it. We are about business building. We've always been about business building before we chose to get into the Amazon platform. My history is building businesses, patented, crashing businesses, and starting over again, and having that history as well as large business and corporate businesses that I was involved in building on large scales as well as my personal time building businesses too.
I mean, the thing is, I call them my deep scars. You mentioned businesses that blew up. Either they were great or they blew up and it was a failure.
Yep. Well, that's
but
all
you learn from both of them. You learn tremendous lessons from both.
A tremendous amount. And you asked, what products not to sell on Amazon? Well, there's ways to learn not how to do business by crashing businesses too. They can be a little more costly, a little bit more troublesome than just wrecking a product compared to wrecking a business. But in terms of the question and selling, there's some components, if you'd like me to break those down a little bit,
Yeah, please.
that tie into answering that. And one of the primary ones is, how do you think about a solution when you're purchasing a product? How do you as a consumer invert the thinking process at this point from being the buyer who clicks the buttons on your mobile phone, or even maybe your wife or spouse or significant partner or other is on there purchasing and trying to solve a solution? And one of the simplest ways I have people do that is to literally go back to their own Amazon accounts, because I haven't met anybody at this point who doesn't have one. Which is, it sounds weird, but that's true. They may not have used it most recently, or they may have stopped using it, but everybody's had one. And if you look at your last 90 days of order history, you'll find that a lot of the products you purchased, whether you realized it or not, were solution based. You were looking to solve a problem of some kind. Okay. You were trying to buy pencils and supplies. And we'll talk about more about where I live. So if you hear chickens in the background, I'll cover that later. Yeah, it's just ambiance to the fun we're having. Is that you understand that those are solutions? Maybe it's, this time of year, people are going back to school, so a lot of the products you may.
It's not your iPhone notification, right? With the chicken.
Not my iPhone notification, no. It should be though, because it would be more fun. Actually, live chickens, yeah, because I live on 40 acres in the country. But it is that solution oriented, and let me give you an example of what that means. I like to use this one because people really understand. You get a tooth, you have a hurt tooth, you need to have that tooth maybe removed or taken care of because it's hurting your jaw and your brain, and all of a sudden you can't sleep and it's really painful and you can't eat food and it becomes a big problem. And sometimes people let it go to the point where it becomes a problem they need to solve relatively fast. What we like to look at it is, from a solution engineer, there's different levels of what people consider solutions. There is the, out here in the farm, we do a lot of jerry rigging, which is literally, how do I get duct tape, baling wire, sometimes welding? How do I put things together that might be broken by just putting them back together in whatever capacity we can put it together, versus going out and saying, buying a new part and installing it, which is another level of creating a solution. There are levels to solutions in, say, medical industry and dentistry and other places. Even, dentists with the abscess tooth could be, my solution would be, well, I'm willing to wait an hour to have it pulled out for $300. I'm okay with that. That's a fine solution for me. I'm willing to pay that amount. I'm willing to take that time to get it done. Others are going to say, you know what? I want that thing out in 10 minutes. Just tell me what it's going to cost. I can't stand another 10 minutes of this problem in my head. I hurt so bad. And the dentist will say, here, it's $500. And they'll be like, great, I'll take that. And 10 minutes later, the problem's gone. They're on their way to healing. Their solution has been answered. The differences in those two people are really the value of that solution to them, both on a monetary or time-based. And ultimately, it could be pain-related or others. It could be related to how fast they want to run, or how much weight they want to gain or lose. It's going to be a solution to that individual. The point is, when you start to think about that from the buying and consumer, you start to think about solutions that aren't price-based in terms of what you sell them, which is where we learn to start tackling the market of $50 to $300 product ranges, not $10 to $20 product ranges. That ties to a different level of people's solutioning. It's the same way that I wouldn't ride as a biker who has spent a lot of time on the bikes, pedaling, not motorcycles, and doing cross country and mountain biking and all inclusive trips. I don't want to sit on a $29 Chinese made seat. No offense. Many people would think that's fine. I wanted the $79 gel cushion, got the hole in it, doesn't crunch and munch while you're trying to get up and down the hills. And that's the solution I was looking for. And I wanted that and was willing to pay for it. Well, there's a whole audience out there that are willing to pay that. Well, why is it important? Why do we look at that from a business perspective while trying to answer the question, what the hell do I sell? And it really gets down to one word that we should all understand in business, and that's profit. It really gets down to profit. While I can say we generated, 100 million in sales and plus between ourselves and our clients, if we spent all of that money to do it, it really isn't very impressive, is it? What's impressive is that we kept as much of it as we could after cost, operation, goods, employees, labor, healthcare, etc., and of course taxes and anything else that was levied against it. That's what's more important, right? The money that we take home. And so we very much focus on the profit solution-oriented branding that gives us the ability to give someone a $500 solution in 10 minutes while still making a healthy profit to pay ourselves, the business, the marketing, the taxes, and obviously perpetuating the business going forward. We call that going by the numbers. That means that by the numbers, the products that we are putting together in this company have to be profitable. Profitable products build a profitable brand and build a profitable company. That is e-commerce in a nutshell. Okay. So many people treat that component of this business model like a side hustle. They don't actually stop and do the diligence, or they may not even know how to do the diligence of determining that a particular product's profitability, after all cost of goods and marketing and Amazon's marketplace fees, or wherever you're selling that product, advertising, could be media and traffic buys, is a component of taking away from the profit in that business model. We, of being business builders, look at things in 90 days in terms of cash flow operations management structure. And we look at, obviously, annual run rates. Now, when we approach it from that perspective, we start to segment ourselves away from, hey, this is a make money kind of thing. Amazon's just a place where you play games with the products and you try to maybe flip. And a lot of people think that there's retail and wholesale and arbitrage and this kind of model. And we've done that. It's not very profitable. Plus, it's against the terms of service. But as you move forward, you really start to think about it as business brand building. We thought about it that way. We chose the e-commerce, and then Amazon's FBA channel we chose because of its ability to make it more passive, to include growth and scalability without having to put in overheads, warehouse, and employees into our business, and not having to worry about tenants and toilets and other things that you have to worry about in certain business models like real estate and others. We don't have to worry about all that when we move products through the FBA system. When we go by those numbers and we determine that profit, we just, Amazon has a cost to operating within it. There's an opportunity, and that is the 200 million people a month coming through who want to buy products in 30 seconds or less. It's just your product that needs to get in front of them, right? And so we understand those numbers. We want to keep profit margins that are a minimum of $12 in profit per unit. We prefer closer to $30, $40, and $50 in profit per unit. That ensures we get paid after all the business runs its operational costs. Again, very important in both the operational time, but also in the exit, should you decide that's something you want to do with this business. Very important. So as you're determining those numbers and you're determining the products and brandability, and you're getting a solution-oriented product in mind with a particular avatar that you might even name this person, it's Sarah, and she's out here and she likes to ride bikes, or she likes to cook, and she buys this particular type of product. And if you start to think about those people and build that criteria, you're answering that question by determining the criteria that makes the best answer for the solution. What should I sell? At this moment, you haven't heard me say, go buy outdoor gear, right? Or you haven't heard me say, hey, go buy kitchen and goods. Why? Because there are millions of products that fit into that. What doesn't fit into it, and I think you and I talked about this in the green room a minute ago before we got going, was things like clothing, right? It's kind of a low volume opportunity on Amazon. If you think about the avatar that is on Amazon the most, and that's women 27 plus, they don't like to try on a lot of clothes and then have them returned. I happen to know that firsthand. I got 5 women in my house. They don't like to buy products they can't try on and then have to go through the return process, right? So there are people that are willing to do that, of course, but it's a lower volume game, although it has good profit margins. But people who get into that particular space in Amazon do need to usually have some kind of off Amazon brand marketing strategy already in place, maybe a customer base already moving, and then go ahead and launch an Amazon store with their product and brand line, and they'll see better success with it than someone who's coming from net new zero clothing line. We also don't do electronics, right? It's one of the places, and you said better to go to learn where not to go. Excuse me. And electronics is a very expensive startup. I have friends that do it in the electronics, anywhere between 1,000 to 6,000 units a day. So there is a high volume, and it is one of the largest moving volume of products. And most all of us have bought electronics from Amazon. You and I were talking about that, right? How we can buy a lot of electronics.
One of the earliest categories actually on Amazon.
One of the earliest categories besides books. Yeah. So the product startup cost is hard, right? The manufacturing and tooling and the making of those products is difficult. I usually tell people, look, if you got a liquid cash or cash line or credit line of $250,000, then you might consider going to market from a dead start on Amazon with electronics. You also should be aware, of the fierce competition, which leads to a bit of things like what's called saturation, which is usually a race to the bottom in pricing. And you're kind of having to continually innovate or renew those products with new variations of those existing products all the time in an innovative state in order to stay up with the market demand for product changes in this way. Of course, there's opportunity, but there's pros and cons to that market due to startup and other costs. We don't usually take people to that. Should somebody want to tackle that later and they've got a war chest, we can go in and tackle that market too. We've done it in the past. It's just one we don't really want people who are brand new kind of getting into.
And it's also in most of the kind of the subcategories of electronics, it's low margin business. That's the other problem with it.
Volume is how you do it. Absolutely.
It's just purely volume. So if then you go with high volume commodity product like USB charger cable kind of things, accessories, right? Or you're one of the 1,000 different earbuds that are sold on the platform,
right?
And
or
they all kind of look similar. They look very similar from the same factory.
You try to innovate something to a degree. Sorry, my latency was making me talk over you for a second. My apologies. The innovation components where a lot of people think they'll solve that problem, or even getting down to the patent level, but now you're talking about at least 50 to 100,000 more in capital you've got to deploy to get to that level, right? And at that point, it may not even be the best platform for that to launch. It might be better for an Indiegogo or some other crowdsourcing or something to get that new innovative patented product to the market, right? And then take it back around to Amazon later on. So it doesn't have to be that complex, right? I think that this is one of the things where you can go down that role and hole. And a lot of people think that you need to do all those things to maybe sell on Amazon to a certain degree. And that's not really true. At the end of the day, while we don't sell in clothing, we don't sell in electronics, we also don't sell on supplements because supplements in the health space, while it's a big evergreen market of health and wellness, the supplements in the mouth or on the skin or anything that goes in that way, you got Amazon's compliance riding over you, and then you got all the alphabet soup riding over the top of you. And there are better and easier ways to sell in the brands in the marketplace than trying to deal with all those problems. And
I'm super familiar with supplements, by the way. For Amazon, when Amazon decided to move, expand the categories from books to other categories, I was running Vitamin Shop at that time. They're a very popular retailer. That this was more than 20 years ago now. And they approached us to actually put Vitamin Shop and all of the brands that we were selling on Amazon for the first time. Yeah. And at that time, the young Sabir said, wow, a bookseller wants to sell vitamins. Why? And then they explained to us what their goal was and what they were trying to do. Right. And it was pretty successful. I mean, that was kind of my first exposure to actually selling, because before that, Amazon was just a retailer selling books on its own, not really having any kind of third party selling anything on there. So, and I actually ended up working with the team, health and wellness team, health and beauty team, to define what the data parameters are in the supplements industry, because they thought that it was just a catalog you would load up. No, this is the strength, it's the pill size, it's the different types of things. You need to do all those kinds of things in order for you to define what a product is in supplements. And we work very closely to kind of define that and launch that vitamin business on the Amazon platform. So I was actually part of that in the very early stages. One thing I want to touch on, and I want the audience to understand this really well. And by the way, that's a really important point, and I want to emphasize it. When you talked about knowing the personality of your customer, that's critical, right? Yes. I mean, if you think about in a retail setting, if you think about the shopper that's walking into Walmart, the shopper that's walking into Target, the shopper that's walking into Whole Foods, right? Those three shoppers are very distinct shoppers.
That's right.
Their age demographic, their income demographic, their regionality, all of those, and their tastes. Yes. I like organic. I don't care for organic. Any of those kinds of things, right, like that. Yes. Those are very important things to consider when you are thinking about designing a product that you want to sell and build your Amazon business. That's a critical thing, right? If you create something unique and special, and let's say the price point is $100, right? Who can afford that $100 is a critical question to ask yourself. Define it, see if such an audience exists on Amazon. Does it make sense for you to have that? Maybe the answer might come back. You're making $100 jackets, but the jackets people are buying in fashion, are $20 jackets. They don't care for the $100 jacket. No, you're right. So is Amazon the right platform? The answer is no. It's like having a product. Do you want to sell it at JCPenney's or Nordstrom's or Macy's? Those are very distinct platforms to be selling your product on. They are. That's a very critical point. The other point is related to that. Once you know that, you understand the profitability of your product. Like, let's say for this, as an example, this $100 product that we put up, let's say it passes that first bar of, my customer frequents Amazon. They are here, they will buy this product. And I have similar kind of products that I can relate to, and I can do my research on Amazon. It shows that they're buying these products. And I read the reviews. I also read all the negatives and the positives of my competition. Great, right? Second part is profitability. And why is that important? For a product that's, let's say, $100, to keep it simple, right? $15 is going to go to Amazon fees immediately for just selling on the platform, right? Correct. So now you have $85 left. I've not taken out any product cost yet. $15 off the top, gone. If for your product to be successful, it has to be Amazon Prime. On average, in my experience, depending on the weight and size, obviously there are variables like that. In my experience, it's going to be between 15 to 20%. 18% is my average for FBA fees for Prime, roughly. But it depends on the size. So if you are selling a gigantic pipe that's not standard size, obviously the number is not going to be 15 to 20%. It's going to be some ridiculous number. Let's say it's something normal that fits into a standard box that they could drop in with other products. So if it's another 15% or 20%, that means $15 for Amazon transaction, another $20 for fulfilling that order. $35 is gone right off the top. What am I left with? I'm left with $65 now, right? Now that's it. From that $65, if I can, if my cost of goods is $30, that means my profit is $35, right? Considering I'm not doing any advertising, none, zero, So, but actually that's an important point to understand. Now that $35 is something that I could help fund my advertising. That's why knowing those components for that one product, selling that one unit of product, right? Understanding that and understanding your max cost per order, I really hope you're selling something that's replenishable, first of all, meaning that I tasted, I love it so much, or I put it on, I love it so much, or whatever, or I use it, that I'm going to have a reuse of it.
Within 3 months or less is what we target, right?
Or every 30 days, like a vitamin business.
Or if it's consumable in nature or even reusable in nature, can you do it within 30 days, right? So how do I build a subscribe and save aspect into that product line? And when you look at the advertising, we do 15% minimum on the top of each unit in order to advertise. There's a case study I have right now that fits very closely into the numbers that you just said. It's $100 product.
I'm a mind reader, by the way. That's the other
dude,
thing
I didn't even tell you this. And he's got $49 in profit after his cost
Wow.
of goods and product. And that's before advertising. And he's selling about 5 to 7 of those organically a day while he's in optimization mode, at which point he has not engaged PPC or whatnot yet. But his closest competitors are going to get destroyed once he does, because he has the capability in his profit margin to go in and buy up all their customers. So Amazon's system of advertising called sponsored ads, sponsored brands, is going to be a way for him to not only take first ranking spots for top targeted keywords, but basically create a brand name and affinity for that product that will lead them to other products in which we will track second and third level purchases from that customer to go after a higher average order value, okay, an AOV. That AOV is really what determines the success of the business. So even if he's making 49 on one product, understand there are thousands to millions of SKUs, opportunities to replicate that process and continue to go deep. So while it's good to get a great profit margin off of each product, and it should be a healthy profit margin, understand it's going to be what it is and what it takes to beat the competition in the marketplace. Even if he has to spend $20 of that 49 and net out 29 in order to buy up all his customers, there's an inverse relationship that will occur as the organic ranking moves up. And his PPC costs are up. Eventually, you're going to see those two start to change positions. Okay, as he buys up that traffic, as organic ranking comes in, as brand affinity comes through, as this product goes out, he's literally doing this right now and is about to launch his PPC campaigns. When he does, he's going in to buy. He's going in to win. He's going to destroy the other 3 to 5 competitors in his marketplace, and he will buy up all that traffic until he does. What will again happen is organic results will come up. Average order value will go up behind the additional products that he's going to put into that brand. And then that product will basically be one of many touch points in which it leads to second and third sales of that brand. And they will be done profitably. And then he will see that ACoS, that average cost of sale, come down. He'll see his ACoS come down while organic ranking goes up. And even in some cases, we got plenty of case studies that show we've turned off advertising for those products. We only turn it on when we need to reboost the products back up into their ranking, and then we shut it off again. And all sales after that are 100% organic. So there are ways and strategies to do that, but your numbers were extremely close to a case study we're working on literally right now in one of our clients.
Yeah, I mean, knowing those numbers are so critical that if you don't understand the expenses, the velocity of 200 million active shoppers can bankrupt you very quickly.
It can absolutely kill you. I've watched it happen over and over again. I've had people come in, and if it doesn't, here's what ends up happening. Okay, it's that you continue to perpetuate just making Amazon more money, and that's not what this is about. It's a win-win.
Amazon is happy. Shareholders are happy.
Well, sure, but I got a guy who came in the other day with a $3 million a year business, and you're thinking, hey, that's great. Well, he spent about $2.9 million doing it. Because he had the lower products, higher volume without the profitability of the numbers, he didn't frankly sit down and actually do the diligence on it. When we did it together, the guy's face turned white because he realized that 80% of his SKUs were not profitable, which is exactly where all his cost was going. He just kept running the process without actually doing the business. And business management and the financial management of this is a big component many sellers miss, and we touch on it big time as we are teaching people how to build these businesses. Again, we just chose Amazon's FBA system to leverage the brand and the authority of that traffic to validate our audience. Okay. Once we do that, you should understand it's 31% of the market, roughly 31, 32% of the market of e-com is just Amazon. Okay. The other 69, 70% is every other channel on e-com. Okay. So once you validate that brand, we have huge market upside potential to go out and with a proven brand concept, buying and sales, and expand it into the other, 60, 70% of the market that we aren't touching outside of Amazon when we go there. But you have a proven brand, proven products, proven sales, proven avatar. It's a lot easier to take that out to mass market, mass media, and continue to replicate that out into the greater market.
I mean, some of the other financial metrics that people need to be aware of are the cost of goods for you to actually freight it over to the prime warehouse. Is something that a lot of people miss. Right? They think that magically it's going to show up, but there is a trucking company that's going to make money moving your merchandise from your warehouse or the shipping dock over to Amazon, right?
Oh,
there will be a cost associated.
It's changed, and in the last 24 months, it has gone from what we could launch in 6 weeks to what takes us now 3 to 4 months. Okay, so that has changed. That's an operational component of any business or any product, any chain, any supplies and goods right now. So whether you do FBA or you've got a retail store down the street, everyone is being affected by that. The differences in us is that we don't have certain operational costs wearing down on our business right now with that timeline that retail, brick and mortar, and other companies do. And that's one of the ways we're going to be sustainable when they're not. Does that make sense? Because, they're weighing costs, we're not. They're weighing employee costs that we're not. Because we run a virtual real estate business in the virtual world, but have physical products stored in warehouses, we have a hybrid combination that's allowed great flexibility in our model. And the employee component, it doesn't even play into this. We have no employees. I used to have employees when I did the wholesale FBA business years ago, and I was running 10 trucks a week out of a 30,000 square foot warehouse in Salt Lake City. I said it was like 20 to 30,000. I forget exactly what the number was. Somewhere between 20. I'll go 20,000. It makes me sound. If it's 30, then whatever. I forget what it was. Around 20,000, 30,000 square foot of warehouse space. We had a huge warehouse, like big one. And we were running trucks. We had 12 employees. We were hauling, 10 of those a week. At the end of the day, that's not really realistic to this model anymore. And I know there's people who are attempting to do some of those things, but it simply didn't make sense. The volume did not make up the difference, and the price and the profitability was, sub net 7%. So that really does not make a great business model where we're at 18 to 20 to 30% now with the type of model that we run in this way. The point back to the logistics, the shipping, the timelines, we can actually adapt well to those. In fact, that is an opportunity that many are missing and are falling out of the market right now because they don't understand the freight, the logistics, and the cost of really moving that as a business line item. They're just ending up with, oh, whoops, I didn't realize the container was going to cost that much. I can't order it. I guess I'm going out of business. And that's kind of how this is working with a lot of sellers right now who are falling out of the market. because they are not treating it as an operational and logistic model. They're not actually working it as a business. It was sort of a side hustle, hobby business. They didn't spend the time to learn the business management side.
I mean, I would say that in the past, in the year of the pandemic, and it continues on even now, the supply side and supply chain, whenever you hear about it on in the news like CNBC or whatever, right?
Yep.
That supply chain has been disrupted because of the pandemic and stuff.
Sure.
What does that mean to you from a seller standpoint? It's something that you really, really need to know your numbers, right? The cost.
You need to understand those. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Neil, you and I know because we live this lifestyle, right?
Yep.
The cost of shipping from let's say you do manufacturing overseas, whether it's Vietnam or China or anywhere else like that, in Asia somewhere, that the cost of getting those goods put on a ship for it to be actually freight over to you in the United States, that costs have skyrocketed in the past 18 months.
Especially for a 40-foot container, which is a lot of the logistics we're working on because we order 40-foot containers. And so do our clients. Those who are not are obviously dealing with higher shipping as well as higher freight costs on airplane travel and just samples and this kind of stuff, because alternatives to moving that outside of ship and rail, which is where a lot of this comes from, or how do I get it here from an airplane to truck, which adds another level of cost. And ironically, to this point, they have been so differential, you wouldn't do it. But at this point, based on the logistics of train freight and overseas ships and cargo ships, in some instances, it's within hundreds of dollars differences to just have them flown here and put on a truck than it is to have them come across on a ship. Now, that's so inverse to where we were just 24 months ago. The cost of a container going from 6 to 18 grand, most people can't do that if you don't have the profit or margins. The reasons we have sustained it in this model is because our retail prices have always been higher. We've always operated in a higher margin, higher profit margin. And while we can take a hit on the profit, nobody likes to do that. We can still do that and make a sustainable business model. We also know that those will come down, supply and demand elasticity being as it is in all things economics. As the productions churn, as this changes to a degree, it already has started to show signs it's coming back down in many locations, while in other locations like China and stuff, it's going up. We made a strategic decision about 3 years ago to do as much as we could to pull out any operational manufacturing out of China. While we still have some things there, we have people on the ground as our sourcing agents and manufacturers. That is more of a tertiary go-to location than a first, secondary. We go into places like Vietnam or Italy or a lot of other places that have tooled up, or India, where you can get great products, and many of the same products that you could get in China can be made out of those locations. While I would love to say we can get a lot more from the United States, unfortunately, that's just not true. It's very difficult in North America to get many of the products we consume manufactured in this area. They shut down, the tooling stopped. There are no manufacturers that can tool for those. So those are one of the challenges in logistics of any e-com company or any physical product-based company, no matter where you are. But there are ways to get around it. There are ways to be strategic. We saw the writing on the wall years ago and moved a lot of our manufacturing and sourcing into other locations for supply chain and redundancy. That just has to do with time and market experience and working with a collaborative group of people who are at our level who are doing the same thing.
So let's notch it up now, the conversation, right? When you are so great information, so far. I'm starting at zero. I like this product. I designed it. I'm manufacturing it, or maybe I went and just to learn about selling on Amazon. I picked up a product and I'm selling it just to kind of learn the process. Let's say I'm going through that. I'm at zero right now. How do you take that and put it on a trajectory of 7-figure business?
So step one, back to that question again, what the hell do I sell? In determining the numbers, we have a number of processes and technologies we deploy in order to help answer those questions. Now, technology is only an enabler. While we developed a tool called Phoenix that helps pull data from Amazon, Helium 10 and Jungle Scouts and others have data
super familiar with them.
Pull from as well. To validate the data. Of course, I know the data set behind Six Leaf, so I trust that more. Of course, we engineer it. But at the end of the day, the data is only as good as the reader. While you can get data from those 3 or 4 different types of tools that are out there, if you don't understand what to do with it next, you may not realize you're misinterpreting the data. So again, the process and knowledge and experience are only as good as the tools you use that enable it to go forward. So as we go through that, tools And we have a spreadsheet. We have a game plan. We call our 5x5 game plan. We go into this spreadsheet of about 27 columns. And it's funny, I jokingly say spreadsheets because everybody's like, well, why don't you have this super software robust system to run these companies? Well, it's like, I mean, I used to work in corporations where we joked that half the corporation was run on spreadsheets. And if they lost their licenses to Excel, the whole company would shut down. We're talking about, 50,000 employees, right? It's still the big component of people doing business. So you go through the spreadsheet, you enter the numbers and the data, and you do a lot of upfront market research. You spend 80% of your time answering that question from the data before you ever make a choice on the product. You need to have 3 of those columns go profitable, okay? And in those profit columns of percentage of ROI, percentage of profit, and the profit columns go green, then you actually know you got a product you could really consider selling, and then you can take it to sourcing. Now, to get to that point, it is, again, answering the avatar question. I'm looking for a product that answers a solution that also meets the data requirements for those to go green. So there are a number of data points to be filled in, cost to be associated with that, and literally it will spit out a product. And when that product goes green, you take it to the sourcing agent. If the cost of goods aren't far off from what we usually set as a 35% default on cost of goods for a landed cost of good pricing at 35%, then you basically get that validated. If they can come back and say, yeah, we can get you 100 units, 200 units, 500, 1,000 units, and it matches up with that, you've got a product you can sell in your brand that will go to market. You'll know your competitors, you'll know your profit margins, you'll know your 90-day run rate, you'll know your supply chain velocity as well as supply chain inventory requirements, and you'll have a good 90-day viewpoint of this product's life cycle as it goes to market over 90 days, okay? So as you get through that process, it's really important to, again, understand that I have taken out any emotions about choosing that product, and I have literally gotten down to, does the product produce a solution that is profitable for the business, right? Because I know that I've already addressed the customer question. It's not callous. And I know some people may look at that or maybe hear what I said and say, well, why don't you care about them? You only care about the profit. It's not really like that because at the end of the day, the profit does run the business, but I'm also providing a real solution and a great product. I'm having a great product manufactured. That's the other important component. I am not just getting the cheapest product for the lowest price I can. I'm balancing price between quality, and it's an important part. You will be found out very fast in the marketplace how well your product is through the review mechanisms and other things that will come back on you if you just produce a bad product. That will backfire.
So some of it controlled, like on an Amazon reviews and ratings, but some
Absolutely.
Uncontrolled, like on social media.
Yep. So you do need to produce a great product, which is very important, while getting the good price point and quality. So that's a bit of the time that it takes to get that together. It just is an example. We launched a product a while ago. Let me give you the thought pattern that developed that product idea. I was literally up, and I don't remember, with one of my 4 daughters at 3 a.m. doing a baby feeding session because she was sick. Mom was recovering. I'm in the front room with the baby and finally get this bottle and kid to sleep in my arms. I'm, of course, awake now and can't get back to sleep. So I'm flipping through the television infomercials. Up pops this little infomercial for a pet doll thing. And I'm like, what is this? I'm a new parent. I'm like, what is this? Right. Turns out it's called a seat pet. And the seat pet is this pet looking toy. This was had a pelican, and it had a cat and a dog. And you put your crowns and stuff in it, and you run the belt through it, and the kids can use it in the car. They can sleep on it, and instead of having their heads fall with the rests in the car seat, they can rest on this, and it's cute. And they can take it with it and put it in their bed and travel with it or whatever. And I thought, hey, that's a really clever idea. And so the next day, I hit my partner, Reed, up, and I said, hey, look, I got this idea. Take this and mull it over. I saw it last night. They're obviously advertising for this product. Let's check if they're on Amazon. Let's see if there's an opportunity. So he comes back and he says, hey, you know what? This thing called anime is becoming very big right now. There's a lot of these commercials. There's a lot. What if we took this basic animal, that they had, and we make it bigger eyes? We make it look a little more anime. It was just a slight twist, right? We didn't invent anything. We borrowed a concept that was already in the market, okay? And we just innovated a slight differentiation. We made ours look a little bit more like anime characters, right? We had them mocked up. We had them send us some samples. We're like, hey, that's not bad. So we took that and we went to market with it. We had 2,000 units that we bought. We said, hey, you know what? These guys are advertising a lot. They're on Amazon, but they're not doing a very good job at all. I bet we can get this in the marketplace and just leverage ethically their traffic and infomercials and other things they're doing for people who are coming to search for this product. Let's just get our product in there and see what happens. So we created something called Belt Buddies. Belt Buddies was the answer to Seat Pets. Okay. Now there's a simple equation that I'm coming down to: similarity and familiarity equal trust. So Amazon's platform being the trust, similarity in the marketing that was already occurring, familiarity with the product type and the oriented customer solution of a parent who didn't want their kid sleeping with a crooked neck, who also wanted a doll or something to comfort them in the car while they were traveling. We simply stepped in front of that traffic. We sold 2,000 units in 8 days. Just putting that product in 8 days.
Wow.
We had
any advertising or organic?
None whatsoever. All we did was leverage a trending authority and an opportunity there. And that's where this got to be really fun. So we got another 2,000 units on PO. We had it already setting in the back. We had the order. We had everything ready to go. The manufacturer could get it to us in, at that point, 4 weeks. So we went ahead and got the next 2,000 units, sold through those in 12 days, literally. And so we did that 3 more times before we did any marketing. The point I'm trying to make was that there was an opportunity. There was an innovation. There was some similarity and familiarity. We didn't have to go invent anything. We literally went into the market and it told us what we should sell people. All right. We're not smart enough to go out and just invent crazy things. We have some patents. I have one, but I'm not the super genius. I found out the real opportunity is innovation, and it should be considered that way, especially because Amazon has a lot of products in it with a lot of innovation opportunities. And to leverage the trust of the marketplace creates immediate value in the minds of the customers who are there. And for all they could tell, Belt Buddies was a better product and looked cuter and matched a trend in the market. And that one they went and purchased instead of the other ones. We eventually sold that company. And it was a great product line, and we had so much fun with that.
That's a great, phenomenal case study there. To kind of change the gears a little bit into, so we have a product, we have our customer, we made our Belt Buddies, a great proof of concept. We sold like 30,000 units. We're feeling pretty confident, you and I. We go and get more inventory. When does it become interesting for whether it's venture funds? There are quite a few companies in this field that, and yours included, that looks for opportunities to acquire brands that are Amazon natives, right?
Absolutely.
When does it become interesting for you to look at? Is it a top line revenue number? Is it the financials? Because I'm assuming that just like I do with the businesses that I acquire, that I know that operationally, immediately when I acquire it, I'm going to improve the margin immediately because of my operating experience. You know, so what is that sweet point for you when you're looking at these businesses that you would like to acquire?
Yeah, let's break that down a little bit. So when you talk about the buyer perspective or the buyer, you and I are buyers of businesses. So let's look at it a little bit from that perspective. What am I looking at, and how did we align that with what we're doing in order to make it buyer friendly in terms of this business model? It's something we call the platinum principle, and that is, in essence, these businesses are worth more when you sell them than at any time during the business building phase. Okay, you can make them profitable and they can toss off great cash, but we remember economics 101 of supply and elasticity of demand. The inflationary rate is going up. Money now is always worth more than money later. So when we have the opportunity to sell that business, we're making more now than we ever will in the future. Okay, so the product is profitability at that point, right? And it's the dollar. So at this point, I'm more interested in the profitability of that business. I'm interested in the upside potential of that product line and have they expanded it or gone and done further due diligence. To borrow that case study a moment ago, one of the things that we got offered at that product line was good enough for us with other product lines we were doing in brands to go ahead and take that buyout. Now, if we hadn't have done that, what we would have done is gone in and what we call our 5x5 game plan. We would have added at least another 5 products into that brand and gone vertically deep into it. We had, other car equipment, other kids' toys, other alignments with that brand. We would have kept going deeper. We would have gone 5x5x5 until we had, 10, 20, 50 or more SKUs, where we had a good breadth of those SKUs making up 80% of the revenues. What I don't want to do when I buy a business is find a 1 or 2 hit wonder company that may be doing 7 figures, but on 2 products. There's a liability and a risk there that I'm not comfortable with. I want a product line that has diversity. I want upside opportunity. And of course, with these types of models, when I also look at that in terms of its scale, and growth opportunity, operational independence. How tied to that business and operations is the individual who's been running it? How well have they run this business? How operationally independent is it for me to take it on or bring my team in without risking the profitability of the purchase and having all the upside potential as it goes out to market in the next 90 days? Like you, I'm also looking at what and how fast I can turn that business around in 90 days. Not just turn it around, but growth is potential. Can I lower its cost? Obviously, I can. There's 5 components I'll look at, from the cost of goods to the manufacturing to the marketing to the brand development. They can be changed relatively fast, and those costs can be lowered relatively quickly. Something we refer to as seller discretionary earnings can be readjusted usually every time in these business models, because usually there are a lot of mom and pop businesses. And when we bring in our own team to do that, we always lower the cost, even the cost of management, right out of the gate. We always know the marketing campaigns can be done better. So we immediately see opportunity in every one of those campaigns we take on. And so we are always looking for those factors in those companies, and quite a few of them are out there. We do require they have at least 18. We'll usually, if it has a lot of the other qualities, but it's at 15% net, we'll look at it and say, how fast can I get it to 18 to 20% in the business? And because I'm going to grow that thing up and sell it myself. And then I'm looking at, does it have 18 to 20% already? Can I get it to 22, 23, 25%? How fast can I do that? And then obviously see the upside potential of it coming down the pipeline. That's what I'm looking at as I go to these: good brand development, good brand structure, and good brand opportunity that simply usually has not been exploited through capital or knowledge. Those are usually the 2 reasons I see Amazon FBA sellers struggling. They don't really understand how they got to be successful. They don't really understand how they're replicating a process of success and brand building as a business. They're still looking too granular at just only the product space. They are not looking at the business holistically. And of course, they're not having the capital to deploy the necessary things for additional products or campaigns that are required to really make them compete strong in the business model. And those are always opportunities that we see with these models. And the third component for us is the mass media marketing through my channels, connections, relationships with people like Kevin Harrington and whatnot, who's sold 5 billion in products and has this huge network that can take these out through relationships. There's a lot of upside potential for those brands that I'm looking for to take into that mass marketing channel afterwards, and see that it has mass marketing or household name appeal is another component with that.
So if I were to guess, a portfolio of 15 to 20 products, right? It typically, to me, means at a bare minimum, $3 to $5 million top line revenue. Just the bare minimum is my guess.
If done correctly, yes. Yep. Can they sell at $1 million? Absolutely. They can sell at $1 million to $1.5 million easy in this market today. In the last now it's about 19 months. I'm doing time in my head. I know it's at least 18 months. There's been over $6 billion deployed to buying Amazon FBA channels only. And that's just in the last 18 months. That's brand new to the aggregation space. There hasn't been any consolidation. There's over 60 aggregators now in the marketplace looking to acquire these companies. But there hasn't, again, been any capitulation or consolidation that's occurred like any new marketplace. Money's being thrown at it. Opportunities are going to come in. Brands are going to reshift. There's still a good waiting period right now to see how that potential piece of this market plays out. But for the seller who is putting this in the market, or the person who's wanting to get started in these businesses and sees, e-com is a huge opportunity, keep in mind, this is a brand new game. While you and I may have been buying on Amazon or others for the last 5 or 10 years, you have to respect that the market itself has not fully matured in e-commerce yet. It sounds weird because everything we feel like we do to this point is so digital. But again, only 31% of the market is Amazon in terms of its.
We're in the toddler stage right now. We're not a baby, but we're a toddler.
At the toddler stage. In fact, Bank of America and Forecast did a research that said by 2030, there's $21 trillion that'll be coming online. Right? We haven't even hit full mass media. We're still at that early adoption crested period.
The pandemic helped. The pandemic helped the e-commerce growth skyrocket, and more people getting to understand how to use technology to make purchase, and really, use technology.
A lot of people got on. My parents, who were not big on buying on Amazon, are now big on buying on Amazon, right? And then they're over 65 in age, both of them. So that was a big shift for them. And I know there's a lot of people that were forced to do that. And that was a big shift in the curve, in the bell curve of adoption. But it's still not fully matured. So as you're looking at these opportunities, there's 600 million products just on Amazon alone. And many of those products are represented all over the world in different ways and different channels that are on Amazon and everywhere else too. In our time being in the market with our data warehouse, with our tool at Six Leaf, we've launched a tool in 2014 called Zonblast Next, which helps people rank within Amazon's compliance and 100% compliance. There's over 60,000 FBA products that have gone through there. What we have seen from that data warehouse and our own insights about products that do 6, 7, and 8-figure launches on Amazon, there's around 12 million of those products that are 8-figure opportunities for those who want to go out and get them. There are literally more product opportunities than we can do in a lifetime.
Yeah. So now, if let's say if a Amazon seller comes to you and says, "Okay, I hit my 3 to 5 million. I have 20 products, but look at my Shopify business. I have Shopify also, and I do another, I don't know, $2 million or something like that, right there." Does that excite you? Does that turn you off? Take me through that.
Well, I mean, it does excite me as long as it's strong brand presence. I would typically say if they've got like an 80-20 rule, let's use the Pareto principle. If they've got an 80-20 on Amazon and Shopify is representing 20, if it's profitable or can be made profitable, I'm excited to buy that. If it's just I tried to get this running, it's barely going, I've hardly done any ads, here's this shop, not so excited. I would go back over and focus. It doesn't have a real value to me. If they are doing that and have that opportunity, is profitable, is a growing channel within their brand, and it's a now multi-channel product strategy, that creates upside opportunity. That's upside potential. I like that. It has good capabilities of more mass marketing and appeal through the additional channels that Shopify represents, whether it's social influencer marketing or if it's paid traffic, media, AdWords, etc. There's a lot of potential upside to that, but it has to be a representation of the brand's extension, not just by the way, it comes with a Shopify store. That's just a distraction, right?
What if it was flipped? They got it on Amazon, right? They got it on Amazon, but Amazon was 20% or 40%, 60% was Shopify.
Yeah, we call it found money, because what most people don't understand, and I've had people approach me with those stores, and I know that some people are wanting to open the Amazon channel but don't understand how to do it or even how to make it more passive, and they're concerned about time and energy deployed away from what's making them money to open a new channel that makes time and energy and effort that may take away from what they're doing. We have solutions, of course, to get through there to make that more easy and even make it passive. But if they're at 80-20 on the Shopify and 20 on the Amazon, or they're not even really at 20, they haven't even got a channel launched yet, we call it found money. In our time with clients that have come to us that have done this, those spending 10, 50, 100,000 a month or more, they're seeing an average of 18% of their paid traffic, Shopify influencer traffic, end up on Amazon buying someone else's product. So they paid for them, they took the money and the effort, well, they're ending up on Amazon. If they don't find their product or brand, they'll buy a comparable over there and go about their way, because the trust, again, the similarity, familiarity, trust equation. They're going to Amazon brand.
Right? What is it? 68 to 70% of American households are Amazon Prime households.
Well over 125 million now.
So I'll Google whatever you're telling me to buy, and I'm going to go to Amazon because I don't want to pay for shipping.
Maybe I saw it on Facebook or AdWords or something, or YouTube when I was scrolling through one night watching, I don't know, a Tom McDonald video or something, and up pops this thing, and it's like, well, I'm not really 100% sure. I go to the website. Okay, let me go to Amazon and make sure it's a real company. I joke about this because at where we are now, it used to be the brochure websites of the world were you a legitimate business? Did you have a website? Yeah. Right. Once upon a time, it's beyond the yellow pages thing. Right. Well, in e-com, I'm seeing a transition that I'm pushing to people to get to understanding is that if you have an e-com store and you're not on Amazon, many people don't think you're a legitimate company. Call it what it is.
Why should I trust you with my credit card?
Right. Well, yeah, like it or don't like it isn't the point here. It's reflective of the culture and society and the buying prowess of what people are doing and what they're doing with their dollars. They are going to places they feel they're more trustworthy. They feel like they have a way to return the product or to deal with issues. They aren't really sure that if this site on Shopify will actually represent. I have friends that do very well on Shopify, but I also know that they face some of these other challenges of paying for traffic and people ending up on Amazon. So eventually they do end up with multi-channel. They get to Amazon because it's literally found money. They're over there. If they see your product and it comes up in the search, they'll go, okay, legitimate company. They may buy it from Amazon, but you're not losing anything in that way, right? You're gaining everything when you do that.
Makes sense. So Neil, this is part of the program where I always promise my audience that I'm going to ask that the show question, right?
Let's go.
So what is your number one? By the way, phenomenal insights into the buying process of, I think it's going to help a lot of Amazon sellers kind of think about how they want to create a framework for their business that's going to be, interesting for if acquisition or exit is part of their strategy for their business. So what is your number one $100,000 expert insight? How do I build a business that I can exit? And let's say that's the business I want to be in. I want to create, sell. I want to be in that infinite loop. So what's your number one advice for that to Amazon sellers?
It's what I call my platinum principle. You may have heard about it in the corporate world as a golden parachute, the hitting the ceiling and exiting the business with your corporate jet and your life, this and all that stuff. I like to think of it as something that you can create and build an asset of a business that you can exit and pull the ripcord whenever you're ready to pull the ripcord and have the opportunity to sell these businesses for 3 to 4x on their profit margins, which is fantastic, right? 3 years ago, it was 2.5. Now it's 3.5 to upwards of 4x on the profit for exiting the business. So the real opportunity is to build a business that is asset driven, that has intellectual property in it, your registrations, your trademarks, your IP, the product itself, and do the business model in such a way as you can build that up and exit it for those who are interested in buying it. Once you learn that process, you've learned a life skill. You've learned how to do, in essence, a virtual real estate flip for those who might be doing that, but in a virtual sense, right? With the tangible physical asset inventory base of that, which a lot of people like, especially a lot of my real estate people, they understand this concept, right? Products are my physical, Amazon's my virtual. It's a cool hybrid model. So really, the lowest we've ever sold a business for is $500,000. So if you talk about making 100,000, if you build a business that's at least 5 figures a month, you could sell that for more than 6 figures. It doesn't, we always talk about big, hairy, audacious goals. And I want to get to 8 figures and all this stuff. Everybody doesn't even understand how to get to that. But if you can get to 7 figures or even a multi-high 6-figure business model, you can exit this business for $500,000 to $1 million. And that process is repeatable and it's faster because it can be done even faster the second time around. You have more capital, the knowledge, the learning lessons to repeat the creation and exit of that business. And you can literally do that as many times as you want. My business builders are set up with that understanding. They build their foundations from the very beginning. The core of the business is built structurally and correctly from the chart of accounts to the business operations, to the bookkeeping, to all the financials, just like a real business, and then set it up for exiting it in the end. So as they build, they're building an actual asset. If they're leveraging time and money and they're deploying it from other things they're doing, banking, real estate, short-term rentals, cash flow they want to toss off from other things they're doing, they're building an asset. They're not just building a job. They're not just building short-term. So those are one of the things that my people enjoy. It's one of the things we've taught and have done and show them how to do it. And it is a great and very fun and rewarding business model.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Neil, for being on the show. Audience, if you would like to, I would highly recommend following Neil on Instagram, as you can see on the screen there, @Neil Twa. And thank you for tuning in and learning something about building and selling and exiting with Neil. Thank you, Neil. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate your time.